Hey, it's Danny. What's up? The last video I had, I talked about how buying gear is sick. It's a great way to be inspired by new things that are happening with your sound, new ways to explore. It's not the most healthy way. There are many other ways to get inspired. Don't just buy gear thinking that's going to be the solution to your problems of getting inspired to make music and make fun and have good time with music stuff. English. I think a lot of people struggle with buying gear to be inspired because frankly, there's a lot of great pedals out there, and it's hard to innovate for these companies. There's not only a limitation with what circuits work, what different approaches there are, but there's also the guitar player community and them being fickle people. They still want to have the classic tones that Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen, all those guys wanted to do. And it's hard to kind of get out of that box for a lot of people, myself included. I am so inspired by the things that I listen to, and unfortunately most of that stuff is all in the past. There's a lot of new music I listen to, but I think the tones that trigger my brains to be interested is old vintage retro sounds. So if you want to appeal to guitar players who are really stuck in this certain sound, they want that retro old school sound, you have to innovate in different ways. One of the ways companies have been innovating is adding modern features to vintage sounds. So there's lots of great innovators in the space of guitar pedals. Seek them out, buy their stuff, that's cool. But let's talk about retro delays. So enter the DM101, the delay machine. So what is the DM101, you ask, Daddy? Wow. It's a fully analog delay that captures that classic analog delay sound. Now, there's kind of three types of delays. Generally, you have digital delays that are known for being quite clean. You have tape delays, which are known for being quite clean and great sounding, but they degrade over time and they have imperfections in the tape that causes that warble. Analog delays are lo-fi. They are run by Bucket Brigade chips. They splash water back into the barrel, and there's less water every time you splash the barrel back. So there's a lot of information missing from an analog delay when you have those chips repeating. But that is such a classic sound. I love analog delays because I love it to sit underneath my guitar sound, especially if you play faster or like really shreddy. You don't necessarily want your delay sound to be in the way of itself all the time, but it's nice to have options. It internally wires the chips inside to make different, unique delay sounds you've never heard an analog delay do, and that's sick. So on top of classic, vintage, modern, which are pretty typical delay sounds, the modern is a little brighter, but then you also have the piece de resistance, that's French, multi-head. It does multi-head delay, so it takes a couple pairs of those chips and routes them in a way so that you can replicate the sound of an RE201 tape delay, but in an analog delay sound. That's sick. That's the best thing ever. So for me, this delay is an absolute game changer. I've got tap tempo, presets, subdivisions for my tap tempo. I got MIDI. I'll explain my rig later on in the video as to why that's such a big deal that I can get analog delays, but with the accoutrement of something modern. Stay tuned to the end. So let's go through some sounds. Let's have a good time. If you want a specific mode, let me know. Hit it. So that was the multi-head setting. The cool part about multi-head is that, again, it's fully analog. It has multiple delay repeats like a tape machine would. Just like an RE201, if you change the variation knob on this mode, it will change the different heads and the configuration of those heads. So sick. So one of the great parts about DM101 is that the modulation is very deep, very lush. One of the cooler parts is that the variation knob in some of the modes will change between a triangle wave and a sine wave, so it just gives you a different flavor of modulation. Really makes for some really ethereal, fun repeats. So one of the things I love about analog delay is that if you have the intensity up quite high, like almost oscillating, and you have the delay volume underneath low enough so that's underneath your tone, it will have this beautiful wash behind everything, but it'll never really get in the way of your sound because it's lo-fi enough that it doesn't necessarily take over everything. So it's just a wonderful sound. It's a sound I use all the time, and I can save it in there and recall it whenever I need it. Who needs anything else, right? So what's cool about DM101 is that it takes that a step further, that washy idea. It has a non-linear mode, an ambience mode, and a reflect mode, which are different modes which organizes the virtual tape heads, whatever you want to call it, inside of them so that it sounds more like a reverb. They're not exact intervals. They do weird things. You can adjust like the pre-delay and stuff like that. So it almost like it replaces a reverb pedal in a way that it's not as lush as a reverb. So again, it doesn't get in the way of your tone and doesn't make things sound far back like a reverb can. That's neato. And it would not be a boss pedal if it didn't get a little weird. So the pattern mode, how else do I explain what a pattern delay sounds like other than hearing it? promised I would explain why this is such an important pedal to me and why it is inspiring me to play more. Okay, so let's go over the rig real quick and why the DM101 is such a game changer. You got the 505. That's the home base. That's providing MIDI to everything. And then the synth goes into the 505. The 404 goes into the 505. The pedal board will go into the 505 and the Princeton, depending on what I want. The little tuner there splits the signal. How nice. But the moral of the story is, what's cool is everything is connected via MIDI time code. So when I type a loop into the 505 there and say the drums are going or whatever, the 505 is always sending MIDI to the DM101. Previously, that was not able to happen with a typical analog delay. So that's why it's A-okay with me. Why that's so important for me is because I have the sound I want, the analog delay sound, but it works with my rig seamlessly. I can save presets. That's so cool. It's so awesome. Love it. So that's the DM101. There it is. It's an inspiration machine. Find a mode on there you like and have a rip. I didn't go through all the modes, but if you want to know a specific mode and what it sounds like, by all means, let me know in the comments. Let's have some fun with this thing. You know, I hope this inspired you to pick up an analog delay. I think analog delay is probably the coolest sound guitar players or musicians can make with pedals. It's just such an inspiring, wow, 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 wow. It's lo-fi, maybe, it's cool. But I hope that inspired you to check out the DM101 or check out any analog delay, regardless. They're fun. So I hope you had a good time watching. I'm happy you guys are here watching me talk about pedals. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye. Finger guns.